did so good in making sure we knew that his wife was by his side. Tracy, thank you so much for being who you are. I want to thank all of the YB&B community, the staff members, everyone that has had a hand in tonight and the success of the organization over the years. Your honor is so well deserved, and I'm appreciative of you asking me to do this. It really is an honor. I also have to thank those who are serving us this evening. It's always a blessing to come into a place and be able to be served and eat food that you did not prepare yourself. And so let's give it up for the people who are serving us. So all the honorees, I have to say, Cheyenne, I don't even need to do no keynote. That was great. What you said and all that you have accomplished. For all of our honorees, congratulations for being recognized by this wonderful organization. So I'm not going to be before you long. This is the year of the partnership, Pathway to Legacy, which is a wonderful, wonderful theme. I think next year we're going to be talking about business and politics, so I'll touch a little bit on that too tonight, because it's very, very important. Sometimes we see a gap between those of us who own businesses and those of us who are politically involved. And I've lived some real life examples where that has hurt my community and my family. So we're going to talk about the importance of that tonight. Partnership is really where I thrive. I know that even just standing here today, there's nothing that we do alone, period. It was evidenced a lot in the 2018 campaign, where we got record turnout in District 4 because we did not go the traditional political route, and we decided to include community at the table, helping us make decisions about how to reach people. And so partnership is everything to me, and without it I wouldn't be standing here before you today, and I wouldn't be able to serve the district that I love, that I grew up in, and that I desire so much for. And I'm gonna, it's Young Black and in Business, so Brittany gave me permission when she said, when your friends make you uncomfortable, then it's probably a good thing, so I apologize ahead of time, so y'all get uncomfortable. As Black people, communal principles are in our DNA. It comes from our roots. So we're here in America, and there's this sort of idea of rugged individualism, where in order to succeed, we're out on our own and we're doing it ourselves, and we don't want to give anybody else credit, and all of those things. But I believe that we desire something more. I believe that we desire connection. I believe that we desire community, and that is why partnership is so important in the things that we do. I'm reminded of Fannie Lou Hamer, who took a $10,000 grant and created a Freedom Farm cooperative. And although only 30 families could afford membership to that farm, she fed 1,500 families, because she understood that the independence that she desired was to help her community, that those two values were interchangeable. They weren't separate. They were mutually supportive of each other. And so that's why it's so important for us to have partnership in the things that we do. So what I'm just going to talk about briefly this evening, I know I haven't eaten yet, so I'm ready to eat, y'all, so I'm going to be brief. And also know it's been kind of a long day and for you all, so I'll be quick. But I do want to give some historical context of how we've been so successful as Black people in this nation and in the city through partnership. And then after that, we're going to talk about ways that we can partner with each other. But we're also going to talk about some pitfalls that we have to look out for. So, the historical context of Black people in business. And let me say this real quick before I move on. As we celebrate each other tonight, and it's so well deserved and it's so needed, and I see so many of you and just am grateful for your success, we have to realize a couple of things. One is the population of Black people is dwindling in the region. In 2010, we were a whopping 6%. In 2020, the census tells us that we're now down to 5%. So it is trending down, so we have to be aware of that. We also need to be aware that right now, the people who are sleeping on the street without a home, 28% of those are Black people. And so we do have a responsibility in our success to make sure that we remember that part of our responsibility is to take care of our community. So as we celebrate each other, we have to remember that. So, Black people in business, when you look at history, it tells us that we are very strong and we are very innovative. We see that over and over. The evidence is all around us. And although I can say, before I went to an HBCU, Spelman College, I really did not get that education in high school. I think things are changing, but I didn't get it. So I wasn't taught about many of the stories, had to learn them on our own, right, through our family members. Now we have the internet, so we have a wealth of knowledge right at our fingertips. But as part of the conditioning, I didn't learn it, and I know many of you did not either. But I say that to say that many of us know about Black Wall Street, we know about Tulsa, Oklahoma, we know about the terrorism that occurred there. But there are also many, many other stories about successful Black towns across this nation that were destroyed in one way or another. We know what happened with Tulsa, and although that devastation is really unspeakable, and I do believe that we all need reparations for the inheritance that we lost. That is a prime example of how reparations needs to be incorporated. But we also should be proud and hold that in our hearts as inspiration to see what the Black people of that town did. There are also, though, the Haiti community in Durham, North Carolina, established in the 1900s. That was a town that was one of the first Black communities to become fully self-sufficient, had a hospital, Black doctors and nurses, a theater, a library, a hotel, over 200 businesses. The founders of this town established the North Carolina Mutual Life Insurance Company, which was the richest Black business at the time. We also have the 4th Avenue District in Birmingham, Alabama. Attorneys, doctors, all types of businesses working together, supporting one another through partnership. In that town, there were buildings designed by Black architects and buildings built by Black contractors. This is a bound that goes all across the nation. We even had an all-Black town in California, Allensworth, California, which established a Children's Savings Association to meet the needs of the community. Any child that needed anything, they came together as a community in partnership to provide for those children. So we see it all around us, and we should be proud of that. When we think about who we are, we should be proud of the fact that so many that have come before us have established this and set an example for us. They are examples that prove that with partnership we can create a legacy, which is what we're doing now through the leadership of Roosevelt. This is what we're doing now. But we do have to remember a few things. Discomfort coming. Maybe not. Anyway, we are fighting against an entire system that was built to maintain the status quo of white supremacy. We are. Now, it's not like it used to be, but it's certainly still a fight. And then so many of us have been conditioned to perpetuate that white supremacy in our relationships with each other. Some of that has to do with ego, it has to do with things that we're not even conscious about. But these are the things that we're fighting against, whether we know it or not. And that also, it takes us fighting together on all fronts, whether it be how we create the narrative for what our culture is going to be and how other people see us, whether it be business and economic opportunity, whether it be politics. We have to fight on all fronts. It's really hard for one to make it without the other. So just going back to those towns that we talked about in Durham, North Carolina, eventually policies that were passed by the elected officials in that town ruined the town. And at that time, Black people were not allowed to be a part of the political process. Even in Allensworth, in California, there were people who did not want that town to succeed. And they did everything they could to ruin that town. We can talk about that in San Diego. We used to have places that were in the same vicinity. And the fact that we're spread out a little bit more, I'm thankful we're successful, but we are spread out a little bit more than we used to be. That's by design. That was on purpose. That's not on accident. And so we have to understand that we are doing good. Where Andrew talked about, what the things that we've been able to do post George Floyd's murder. We've been able to do a lot of things. We've also established an Office of Race and Equity at the city. Mine was first. Anyway, that was a politician in me. I can't help it. I'm sorry. And see, I got off track. I shouldn't have did that, see? But we were able to do a lot of things through that social movement. But we have to look at history. And in history, there are these movements that take us up and we make all kinds of changes. And then there's a decline. We can see right now there's not as much support for the Black Lives Matter movement as there was in March and April of 2020. That's not me, that's statistics telling us that. We can see that there's a lack of support right now for ensuring that voting rights for all Americans is a thing. We're going through that right now, as we celebrate each other. So throughout America's history, we see this swelling of support for social justice movements, and then we see a decline and a backlash once success is seen and once it's obvious, especially economic success. So I'm not saying all hope is lost. What I'm saying is that we must stay vigilant. We have to hope for the best and we have to prepare for the worst. And this is where partnership is more important than it has ever been. Because I feel like for the first time, we can, stay on a plateau and not go back down. We have the opportunity to do that, but we have to stay engaged on all fronts. When we talk about partnership and our desire to work together, we have to practice principles of unity. And I'll tell you what that does not mean to me. That doesn't mean that we have to agree on every single solitary thing. That's not how I see unity. That to me is an oppressive alignment of thought. That if I say something, you just have to agree with it. No, that's not unity. Unity is, let's sit down, talk about it, come up with a strategy, and once we leave outside those doors, everyone will know what position that we play in our improvement, in our success, in our progress. That to me, that is what unity is. So we have to know the fight never ends. We do have to know the importance of political involvement. I think Karen, you got up here earlier talking about the importance of public works contracting, and that's where sort of I learned at a young age that it's very important. You can be successful, you can know your craft, you can have all of your ducks in a row for a business, as my father did in his construction business back in 1996, 97. And still lose everything because a law changes. And so back then, Prop 209 was passed. And what Prop 209 said was, the white contractor said, hey, you're discriminating against us with all of these set-asides. And so we're gonna put something on the ballot that says there's absolutely no discrimination at all. And that passed. And what it did was, it stopped the local municipalities from mandating goals to say, well, you have to have, 15% of women on this job. You have to have 15% of black folks on this job. Whatever the protected class was, it stopped that. And so guess what? All the numbers went down. As soon as the people in the industry who have had their companies for hundreds of years, while we were still being owned by other people, they were building companies, right? And so What happened was it gave them the advantage again because we didn't have the law to protect us. And so that's why we have to partner, and moving into next year, we have to stay together when it comes to politics and business, because there are laws that can wipe out all the success and all of our hard work. And I think ultimately, most of us do want to be harmonious together, no matter what color we are. I truly do believe that, but that reconciliation doesn't come without us sitting down at the table and facing what this country has done. That's just a reality. That's just like in your relationships. My husband is here. He knows, when we get into an argument and I'm wrong, I need to come to the table and say that I'm wrong. Or else we can't really move forward in a positive and healthy way. And that's the same thing that this nation needs to do. Even for the very ground that we're on right now, our indigenous people. You have to do that. So I'm going to close out. I just thought about some things that pillars of partnership is what I'm calling them, that will give us some tools to kind of work together. I think partnership requires strategy. I think it requires a well-defined relationship, even if you have to write those out. Just depends on what kind of partnership it is. I believe that it requires setting aside ego, which is hard for all of us sometimes, especially when we feel like we're right. I believe that partnership requires holding yourself first and then others next accountable. Hold yourself accountable first before we go dipping into other people's stuff. There's a lot of things that we need to handle on our own. Right? Right. Okay.
Amen.
Partnership requires clear communication and a willingness to have patience for understanding. It requires truthfulness, honesty, and authenticity. Vulnerability. Woo, that's a tough one. It requires a shared vision. I do practice the Christian faith, and my Bible tells me in Proverbs 29:18, where there is no vision, people perish. George Washington Carver also said, where there is no vision, there is no hope. Black inventor of many, many things, George Washington Carver. And then, last but not least, and I'm sure you can think of many other things that partnership requires, but partnership requires sacrifice. It's not the easiest thing to do, to partner with others. We all still have our own individual thoughts, right? Our own individual goals, the things that we want to do. So partnership often requires sacrifice. But I see it here today, and I'm very encouraged by it. I'm extremely encouraged by all of you. And I know history already tells us we can do it for centuries and centuries, and we continue to do that work. I am just here to say that I know the system reinvents itself. It does. And we have to be in the system at the table to make sure that it doesn't happen again. So those are the thoughts that I want to leave with you this evening. I appreciate so much who you are, and just know that I'm always grateful to when I'm invited to come and speak to you about these things. So thank you, everyone. I appreciate you so much. YB&B members, I'm going to call you by name and just stand up, and then I'm going to ask Roosevelt to come and join me at the podium, please. So, Daniel Horton, Brittany Miller, Jacqueline LaQuindinum, sorry if I got that wrong. Letitia, are you here? You are here. Leveda, England. Leda. Adam Stone. Carlton Brown. We heard from Brad Weber, Curtis McNeil, Antoine Howard, Messia Outlaw, did I get that right? Jamal Johnson, Cheyenne Smith, Zach Brewster, Johnsy, Kia Edwards, Trinell Hicks, Hayshawn Thomas, Rashad Ottman, Michelle Faith, Jasmine Sadler, Carly Davis. You gotta get up again, I know, it's fine. Well, I have your commendations here. Make everyone knows what they say. So this is a special commendation from our office. And on behalf of the city of San Diego, it is my pleasure to honor and acknowledge your achievement. Congratulations on your commitment, dedication, and notable success. We salute you as an outstanding young Black and business member. Thank you so much for all that you do. Thank you. Everyone give them a hand.